Okay, so here I have a fun 1v1 matchup. Uh, we have myself playing the Dark Elves as my traditional preferred faction, and then on the other side we have a Wood Elf player. Um, this was a ladder competitive game, and it was a very close, very hard-fought matchup with I think a few maybe minor things that could have been done differently that might have turned the tides of battle, but. Let's see how this goes. So the basic strategy from my perspective was to tie up the archer units of the Wood Elves because I know a lot of the killing power from Wood Elf armies tends to be in archer units, and usually people go like very skirmish heavy. So I brought 3 units of harpies and backed them up with 3 units of manticores, and the combo of a manticore plus a harpy can really like lock down and wipe out an archer unit pretty quickly. I think if you I didn't have the manticores there, like some of these units, like the Way Watchers, for example, like they can actually fight decently well in melee combat, and they would probably actually scare off the harpies, or it would be a very atrocious fight at the very least. So I think you need the manticores there to ensure that the harpies are actually able to route those units. They would, I mean, the harpies would do okay against Glade Guard, but against Way Watchers, Deepwood Scouts, these types of things, I think it's going to be a harder time. Um, so yeah, wanted them to wrap up the mobility. Morathi, I brought her. She's not. I don't know. I don't think she's an optimal board lord against the Wood Elves. Like putting her on a flying mount with only 3,400 health, you're kind of a pincushion. So if you're not really careful, you can get sniped out of the sky. I did bring Soul Blight to kind of give myself a little bit. Sorry. What is Soul Stealer to give myself a little bit of an option for health regen. As you just highlighted here, yeah, Soul Stealer, but it is very thirsty on mana, so like that's kind of a last resort sort of spell, unless they're super balled up. And then I brought yeah, I brought Soul Blight, which is a debuff, but it has a debuff of minus 30 armor. I don't think you really need that armor reduction versus Wood Elves, but it's still a decent skill. And I thought, okay, maybe it gets the treatment. Let's see how the treatment are. 80 armor brings them down to 50. It could help me chop through them. These Firebark Elder Treekin are an absolute nightmare to deal with. They can tank out for a really long time. 6,500 health with a 70 melee defense for a monstrous unit. Like that's probably the highest melee defense for a monstrous unit in the game. Don't quote me on that, but it's really really high. So I think they're. I mean, that unit, in my opinion, is basically an auto pick for the Wood Elf army. Uh, Wood Elves, they brought a much more balanced roster than I was expecting. I thought there was going to be like 3 units of Deepwood Scouts, 3 units of Way Watchers, and some stuff to just kind of pin me in place. So credit to my player for like playing the game, I guess the way it was quote unquote intended to be played. And interestingly, he brought Orion instead of like your traditional glady on flying mounts. So interesting matchup, definitely some cool stuff there. These Treekin could sort of serve as his bodyguard if he got isolated, and Orion, he has a magical item that when he gets low on health, he can just boost it up forever. Let's see if he has that now. I'm assuming yes. Okay, there it is. Cloak of Aisha, 44 damage resistance and heals, like 44%. So, like, often Orion will like bait lords into trying to kill him really quickly, and then he'll just like survive long enough for help to come, or for the other lord having like to have to peel away because they're just taking too much damage. So fast forward here on the initial engagement, I did find the spell singer sort of out of position. Well, I guess maybe not. He's with his army here. He drops a Manticore here to obstruct Morathi, which was a really good play. For me, I drop a Doom Bolt on these Treekin because I wanted to try and do as much damage as possible, and they were balled up a little bit here. So I think I got some good value out of that. Unfortunately, I didn't drop any models, um, but any damage I can do on those Firebark Elders is really going to open up the field for me. So with the Pharaoh Manticore obstructing the way of the flyers, I pulled back. Morathi did take a little bit of arrow fire on her way out, but I tried my best to kind of dodge the shots with a little bit of micro there, just swerving back and forth. So congrats to my opponent. They did a good job of really securing this hill. Like this is a very good defensive position uh, for the Wood Elves. A little bit of a swing and the miss there from Orion, and he tries to drop another vortex here, but this one actually hits its mark, and it does quite a bit of damage to the Dark Riders. Meanwhile, Morathi is, trying to get free of this Feral Manticore. I was distracted by the vortex spells here, so I didn't notice that there was this fight going on. Honestly, I played this game pretty late at night, and I was tired. I think, if I was really on top of my game, I would have had those other Feral Manticores over here to help out and get that 3v1 pretty quickly. Flock of Doom going down here. I mean, it doesn't cost a lot of wins, and it did hit 3 units, but I think the mage would have been better to just wait a little bit for this frontline engagement, for a big clump to go, and then you can overcast it, and because it's like an area of effect, you're going to get a lot more value. So once the frontline units have engaged here, I was able to do what my whole plan was, which is to get the Harpies into the back line and deal with these Blade Guard. The Spellsinger of Beasts pops another Feral Manticore right off the bat. So that's a lot of Winds of Magic. It's popped 2 Feral Manticores. So at this point, I don't think it has really much of any Winds of Magic left. But at this point, I saw from the trees 2 units of cavalry, and I was like, oh no, like I cheated a little bit by going with Harpies and Manticores to really, take the shooting off of the field. But unusually for a Wood Elf army, he only brought 3 units of archers. And the archers, they're not really high value. They're Glade Guard, and 1 unit of Way Watchers. So really, you didn't spend a lot of points on archers, so the heavy investment in the Manticores and the Harpies was really kind of a waste. And I was like, crap, how am I going to deal with these cavalry? I have light cavalry, but it doesn't have armor pen, and I don't have any cavalry that can really close out in combat with these Wild Riders. And even spears, I have literally 1 unit of spears, and they have their hands full right now, trying to do as much damage as they can over here against the Firebark Elders. Granted, they got stuck in with some Dryads, so not on their preferred target, but the Dark Riders with repeater crossbows are shooting into these treekin. So I am finally getting some work on this high value target. Another Doom Bolt coming in. Now they're down to about half health. Leadership's starting to waver. If you look at the balance bar, it's starting to catch up a little bit. I started really far behind, but the Manticore summons, they're falsely pushing the balance bar in the wrong direction. I did lose 1 of my Manticore. I have another unit just chasing some Glade Guard off of the map. Morathi's standing in front of the Glade Guard, but not for long. She's going to go down there and take care of business. And then in hindsight, maybe I should have had her on these Firebark Elders and just tried to get them off of the field quicker. But maybe not. I mean, I don't know. Those Firebark Elders are meant to sort of absorb damage, so yeah. Back here, it's become a bit of a circus act for me, just trying to get away from these Wild Riders. There's really not much I can do here. They're going to just chomp through the Dark Riders with repeater crossbows. I have a couple units that have broken from the front line, just from all of Orion's bombardments and the pressure with lack of buffs and leadership support from Morathi. They've buckled, and I've had to sort of rally them, and so not looking good for me. The balance bar at this point is very heavily in the favor of the Wood Elves. I am fighting this Feral Manticore. I don't really want to fight this Feral Manticore, but it got a charge bonus in on Morathi. She's so low. I was like, oh god, if she routes off this map, it's game over. But she works up the courage. She summons her inner cruel dark elf, whatever the hell, and just rallies right on the edge of the map. So I'm like, okay, I got a chance, but you got to think here. How are you going to win this? He's maybe he relaxed a little bit. He started to push his units to sort of chase off these routing units, and he didn't keep them with the tree can, which gave me a little bit of a pocket here. Orion, I think, was trying to shoot Alariel out of the sky with his spears, but I was like, oh man, he just left Orion exposed. This is my avenue to get back into the game. Now, a lot of people think Morathi can't really fight in combat. She's a sorceress, whatever, but she's very deceptive because she has the anti-large bonus. She can reduce melee attack. And you know, like these Firebark Elders, for all of their melee defense, their melee attack is absolutely crap. And with Morathi around, like it's basically at zero. And she can just chunk away at like large targets like Orion because she has the anti-large bonus, and with the Manticore support and then Witch Elves, I was like, all right, man. Suddenly this game is close after all. These units didn't catch my routing units. I got my Harpies in here. Orion, okay, he's got his 44% damage buff, but or damage resistance buff, and the heal's going off now, but like this is a lot of damage for him to deal with. And these Firebark Elders, like I said, their melee attack is pretty low. Orion's melee attack is pretty low. Let's see. Well, 64 is still not bad, but let's see. Morathi, I don't know what happened there. Maybe she got like knocked up in the air by these Firebark Elders. So I need to get her back in combat, especially because she's taking arrow fire. She got so low, down to 500 health. But I was able to pop one more Soul Stealer because I need to get Orion off like ASAP. So all of the damage I can possibly put on Orion, I do. I clear him out. These tree bark fire elder things finally have had enough. Wild Riders are active in the back line, kind of cleaning up these other units. I've got 2 units of spears, but their leadership is so low that and they're so spread out, the Wild Riders can kind of ping pong between them, and I know there's pretty much no hope of rescuing them at this point. So balance bar, like, it's still in the favor of the Wood Elves, but it's kind of close, and I'm like, what can I do here? Witch Elves, they're making sure that these, like, they're super depleted. They're just making sure that these Firebark Elders get off the map. If they do that, they've done their job. I start chasing off these Sisters of Avalorn, which I think in hindsight was a bad choice. I probably should have secured like the safety of my isolated infantry units here, here, and here, regrouped. I would have had my Lord, still a decent amount of fighting power, and in a pitch battle, like everything all together, maybe Morathi's melee attack debuff would sort of tip the battle, because these Wood Elf units, they're really known for their melee defense, but their melee attack is low, so Morathi can sort of like limit their ability to do damage. But with Dark Riders with repeated crossbows and Morathi, I'm like, okay, I can take out these Sisters of Thorn, and I thought I would be able to maybe get them off the map a bit faster than I did. I don't know why these units like went over here. I think I must have misclicked or something, because if they had been here at the same time as these units were wrapped up, Sisters of Thorn probably would have routed, and that would have been Bob's your uncle. Instead, look at them with like 2 leadership. I don't know. They're wavering, and it's just taking me too long to get these Sisters off of the battlefield. Meanwhile, these Dread Spears, like, I try and turn their face to these Wild Riders and Brace and all this, but they're not having it. They're too beat up. So I'm like, okay, is there any chance that I can like get them to run in the direction of my Lord? And the answer to that was no. I do finally write off the Sisters, but it cost me 2 units of Dread Spears. So now, like, I literally have no answer for the Wild Riders. The Manticore with the Harpy support could, you know, maybe be okay, but then what's going to kill this front line? So I'm going to fast forward this here. Not a lot going on. At this point, like, my Winds of Magic are basically gone. So the Wood Elf player kind of regroups. I've got maybe 23 Dread Spears. Not very much. Balance bar heavily in the Wood Elf favor. Sisters, like, I'm still chasing them around. It's crazy how, like, intensely those units can kite. So I scare off the Dark Riders a little bit, but they come back and they're like, screw it, I'm going in. and then everything just goes pretty bad for me. I did some damage to the Dark Rider, so not the worst, but here we go. Things are looking good for the Wood Elves. He's doing the right thing. Like, he doesn't have like a heavy hitter like point damage, so he groups up, and I catch him like overextending a little bit with these Wild Riders. I'm like, great, I can drop I think Morathi in there. I can shoot with the Dark Riders. Manticore comes in, Terros, and I'm like, oh my god, all of a sudden I have a chance. The balance bar is shifted. It's close to even. My opponent, you can't see it in chat, but he was like, fuck. And rightly so, because I was like, okay, all of a sudden I have an avenue to get back in the game. And like Morathi, the Manticore, they can cycle charge. The Dark Riders, you know, they have their unit on the ground, right? So I'm not forced to land. So I'm like, okay, great. If I'm careful with this and you know, maybe time it right, I can win it. So initial shots going off on the Treekin. I'm like, great. If the tree can go down, then there's no mass to pin the Manticore, so I can cycle charge as much as I want, right? I still have ammo. Balance bar tilting slightly. I send the Manticore in just to freeze the Dryads or the Treekin for a second, hoping to be able to reposition these Dark Riders. Unfortunately, they don't have like fire well moving, so I could have kited it out. At this point, there was like 2-3 minutes left in the battle, and like if I just kept kiting, the battle probably would have ended in a draw. But I was like, that'll be boring. I don't want to do that. Let's just fucking let's have it out. Let's get an end to this game. Balance bar is basically even. I'm like, if I can hit maybe 1 or 2 of these Treekin, Morathi's debuffs go off, you know, maybe I'll get lucky. Manticore starts raging. I'm like, okay, if the Manticore dies to the spheres, it's over anyways. Morathi comes in. She's low. I'm like, she's probably going to die. Spears switch targets from the Manticore. They get a full surround on Morathi. Morathi drops, and then that is G to the G for me. So very well played. I send the Dark Riders in to try and, like, you know, break a space for Morathi, but end of the game with like a minute left on the clock. Super fun matchup. So congratulations to Pencho Wolf. He ran a balanced build, which I really like to see, because I think it's really in the spirit of the game. Me, I tried to counter like the typical Wood Elf sort of archer spam skirmish build, and I think, you know, maybe I would have been better off with just 1 unit of Harpies, 1 unit of Pharaoh Manticores, and that would have been it. Morathi, I was impressed with her. I mean, she took out Orion. She did better than expected versus the Wood Elves, but you know, if you're going to take Morathi, you have to really be on top of your game, because one slip up, you lose like 3k, and it doesn't take much. So very fun game. Well played to Pencho Wolf, and I hope to see you on ladder again soon. Thanks, bye.